Hey guys, how's it going? ItZMuRdA here with a first look, impressions, preview, feedback, whatever you want to call it, for the current patch that is on the test server. It is the first phase of the OMFG optimization patch, and I'm going to be mostly talking about the new Biolab, or at least the proposed new Biolab, and what I think about it, what you guys might see if you haven't seen it yet, and as well as just touch on a few other things. So before I do that, I'm going to mention that optimization is great. I uncapped my FPS, so I'm at about 170 in the spawn room right now on Endar with my same relatively low graphics settings. When I was fighting this morning, it was like a medium-sized fight, 25 to 48 on both sides, and I was getting about between 90 and 100 FPS in Alatum during that fight. That was, it wasn't like a huge, oh my god, ridiculous increase, but it was certainly great. I would probably still be of a 60 plus nature, hopefully during even large fights. So I'm excited about it. People were reporting a lot of really great things. I was getting some hitches or spikes or frame drops, whatever you want to call them, about every 10 to 15 seconds, maybe every 30 seconds or so. I imagine that's just a bug relating to the changes in it, and it'll be fixed. They did add this smoothing option, which essentially works like a VSync and caps your frame rate and tries to improve consistency with it. I didn't have really time before work to test it out too much, but I heard some people saying that you can toggle it on, and by default it caps you at 60, just like VSync would on a 60 Hz monitor. But you can change that in the user options.ini to cap it something higher for your refresh rate. So if you're having trouble with frame drops, you might want to toggle it on, change the user options for whatever it is. If you have a 120 Hz monitor or whatever, make it 120 so you're not hurting yourself, and try that out. But I'm not too worried about bugs or things that still aren't polished. I count on them to get that sorted out. That's the whole purpose of this after all. Before I get into other things, I want to say something that I'm going to say again at the end of this video. It is just the test server. It's here for testing new concept. It doesn't mean that it's going to make it to the live servers. Oftentimes they get changed multiple times based on feedback, especially if it's overwhelming. So if you like something or you dislike something, especially if you're passionate about that, make your voice heard on Twitter, on Reddit, on the forums, in this video's comments, share it with people, whatever. They do listen for sure, and devs have already been responding to things today throughout the day. With regard to concerns about some of the changes. So don't worry about it. Don't fret about it too much. I'm confident that if the response is overwhelmingly negative for something, that it will change. And SOE is historically usually pretty good about that. So just say what you feel, but don't get too crazy about it yet. And before we go into Biolab, I'm going to mention that the central HUD mode, which is something I've always used, has changed. It has changed ideally with optimization in mind, to be more simplistic and use less resources. I'm not sure how much I like it, but I will get used to it. It's not a big deal, especially if it's going to make the game run better. Basically, if you're not familiar with it, that moves your HUD around to the center of your screen, so you can see on the right hand side when I'm shooting my gun, and then both when I'm reloading, some new animations. It used to be just kind of blocks, like little squares or rectangles, that you could see deplete as you shot, that little brownish spot, if you will. And I like that because you could get a clearer view of how many bullets remain, or in the case of jump jets on the left hand side with the blue bar, or the teal bar, how much of it. You kind of have to just kind of eyeball it a little bit more now. Also, like I said, the reload circle changed, if you notice that in the center of the screen, as well as the jump jet indicator around the light assault icon at the very bottom center of the screen. If I take some damage, which I don't know if I will in here, no, I think if you sometimes like toggle it on and off, it'll come back, or maybe, I don't know, whatever. I'll take some damage outside so you can see the health and armor indicators. I think I can get used to them. I'm probably just a little hesitant because I'm so used to the other ones, but that's not really a big deal for me. I'd like them to be a little bit clearer, of a linear display, or at least a symmetrical display, something that you can kind of divide and say, okay, I'm at about 50% health, 25% health, rather than the kind of like inconsistent little wave-like design that they have right now. But that's a minor thing. I can deal with that either way, especially if it improves performance. So anyway, you might notice I am in a Biolab. And all Biolabs are going to be a little bit different because they have different architecture and where the points are and number of points and things like that. But I am in a Biolab. And it looks different, right? I'm in the spawn room, but these doors are closed. The roof latches are closed. The back door is closed. What the hell do I do? Maybe if I change at this terminal. I'll show my health briefly. Yeah, for a split second you can see the health in the armor. Anyway, so you're wondering, and then you're an intuitive person, so you see arrows on the ground, right? This is a little weird. So you're gonna follow the arrows, see where they go. You do spawn if you spawn into the biolabs in one of these tubes, by the way. There's more arrows. Let's keep following them. And there's more arrows. They kind of point to each other, which is a little weird. But if you're confused, you still realize that all of the other previous entrances and exits are closed, and then you realize that there's an arrow pointing this way. And you wonder what's beyond that. Oh, it's the old vehicle bay, kind of getting a little bit more use than it used to, with more arrows. So if you want to pull a vehicle here, you can. But another arrow points to this mysterious thing with an up arrow, which I don't even know what that's for. Takes you into this crazy room, and you might wonder where this is. It's now another area in the biolab, a kind of a small outpost type of spawn room, or a large outpost, I guess both could have it depending, with its own terminals, its own spawn shields, its own numerous exits, and its own cover right nearby for what that's worth as well. And it pops you out to the left of where the spawn room would normally be if you go out that side. And now you'll see there is no spawn room, so you were in some crazy ass room in who knows where. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Trying to take some fall damage, but apparently I'm really bad at it. And then this, if you popped out the other side of this room, would be on the other side of where your spawn room normally is. You'll notice that there's some additional cover and things like that. So I want to talk, before I move through the rest of the biolab, a little bit about the spawn room, because I think that the biolab redesign in general is great. It's amazing. There's nothing I can complain about as far as the other things I'll show you later. But the spawn run and things like that, when I got to play about for 20 minutes this morning, is incredibly frustrating. It's boring. There's a good 20-30 seconds run back time, something like that, every time you die and respawn, and you're used to spawning at a biolab and you're back in the action in 2 seconds maybe. It's not really good for quality of life. Even with the arrows, it's pretty unintuitive, especially for new players. I think that in general, when I'm playing, I like as much uptime on my battles as possible, and oftentimes I won't even spawn at a base that has a fight, or at a sunder near a base that has a fight, because of its distance from the fight. Maybe I'll spawn there a couple times and I'll say, oh god, it took me 40 seconds to get into battle last time, and then I don't want to just keep dying and doing that over and over again. And maybe it'll promote playing more carefully. I don't know. That somebody can always argue that. But that's not me. I'm pretty aggressive, and you shouldn't just shun those aggressive play styles by giving them a 40 second obligatory run back that is frustrating and boring and all sorts of other things. So I think that's the big problem, and you'll certainly notice it for yourself if you are the defenders of a biolab, and every time you have to run and then up the stairs. Like, they made it as long of a path almost as they possibly could. It seems like, and I'm confident that if enough of us don't like it, they will certainly reconsider that. So again, don't freak out about it, but do let your voice be heard in a respectful, constructive sort of fashion. So they could have done a lot of other things, and I'll talk about another issue with the spawn problem in a second. But as far as this room goes, they could have put the tube obviously in this room to get you to the next area. They could have put it's anywhere along this way, rather than requiring the most ridiculous amount of turns and looping back to get to here. They could have also put 2 tubes, one that will take you to this vehicle bay, because I like the fact that they added vehicle bay access from the spawn room or from the protected area, rather than having to run out into the middle of nowhere. Essentially, you couldn't access that V bay once the attackers were by the SCU shield gen. As well as a tube that goes directly to this room, so that you can bypass that entire vehicle bay area. And the reason why that's especially important, aside from shaving off some extra time, is because this area can still be penetrated by gate diffuser sunderers and harassers. They can roll on in here and just completely thwart any sort of defense that you have, because you're forced to go through this area to get to the rest of your biolab. Essentially the spawn room is completely cut off from it. So that's kind of a big problem, maybe the biggest problem with it, that you can just hop on some enemy vehicles in here and just completely spawn camp the one tube that enemies would come out of. or friendlies, depending on how you're looking at it, and I think that that's a bad idea. Definitely keep access to this room through a tube from the spawn so that they're safe to get to their vehicles if they need to. You also can't currently deploy Sunderers in that bottom area. Even for defenders, it's a no deploy zone, so you can't even have that like bypass by putting your own Sunderer in there like you could in the past. So anyway, that's kind of a big issue, the whole VBay and it being mandatory and things like that. Like I said, I do like access to it, but it shouldn't be a required path that you have to take in order to get back to the battle, especially with the gate diffuser problem. I also kind of worry about the short cap timers on Biolabs, depending on the number of points being held. I already think that it's really short, capping in only a few minutes on a live server, especially with the SU shield gen that can be knocked offline almost right away, give you guys very little time to respond to any attack that's made in force at all, really. And it feels like this model would just make it almost impossible to defend a Biolab unless you had a ton of guys there before the enemy even showed up. So there's a handful of things that you can do, and I'm going to run around the Biolab and talk about things as I get there. But there's a handful of things you can do. Like I said, you can put the spawn tubes elsewhere, obviously just to shave time off of the run back. You can put multiple tubes, one to go directly to the new spawn, or staging area, if you will, and one to go to the vehicle bay to have that option. You can, change the spawn timer. You can give an instant spawn to players at a Biolab to compensate for the fact that they have a longer run back, or you can revert the model or go back to a shorter run with a longer spawn time. So if all they're trying to do is kind of give the attackers more of a chance and give the defenders a more required time to get back into the fight, that's fine. And I think that the general theory and idea and design intent behind all of this is great. It's just its actual implementation makes for a very frustrating model, a very boring model, something that'll make me say, I don't even want to defend this Biolab anymore because I literally have to spend 30 seconds running back to the fight every time. So I don't know, I think that that's the biggest thing that needs to be rethought, but I generally do like the new design, and I think a lot of the problematic areas of the Biolab have been addressed, and maybe, giving the defenders a little bit more reliable yet harder or longer time to respawn is totally fine. I think it just needs to be approached in a different way as far as like a physical restriction like it is currently, because that's just really frustrating. So anyway, some of this good stuff that you've seen as I've walked through the dome, the not as easy to be camped spawn position, because I mean there's no spawn room right here where it used to be, right? It's like back in this thing behind two little mini buildings, a bunch of really tall cover. There's more of these barrels or canisters or whatever. There's this thing. It's kind of tucked away, hard to get to. So I imagine that it would definitely be harder to spawn camp somebody than with the current model. You're that much further away from the important things like the objectives and the SCU and whatnot as well. There is also capture points that aren't as easily spammed, less entry or exit points. There's the door to A up here that you'll see that's closed, the area around B with the new shield gen, as well as some additional cover, and areas around the teleporter pads in those rooms that I'll show you as well. So here at A, well, it's A on Rashnu at least, it's different letters at different bases, but this door that's normally open is now closed. So you've only got this one upper point of entry. You've also got these double high walls that give a different dynamic to people coming out of that spawn room or camping that spawn room. You can obviously still do it, but it is nice to have a little bit of additional cover. You'll notice other things around these types of rooms, such as even just these few additions of canisters, this addition of the wall back here. Some of the highly contested, highly camped areas of Biolabs have been addressed by just throwing additional cover around, which I think is a simple yet effective fix. You'll see some more, not so much on the air pads, but around here as well. There's that additional stuff. New trees, by the way, by the air pads, as well as the cover over here at this teleporter room. So I think that this certainly makes a difference. The most boring part about Biolab fights currently for me is when they become those stalemates, meat grinders that are stuck between the inside and the pad, or the people in the teleporter room and the people outside of the teleporter room. I usually just leave Biolab fights, even if they're good defenses, whenever they turn into something like that. So here again is another wall that makes it a bit harder. I'm light assault, so I can just, kind of circumvent and make it not look as difficult. But if you're, an engineer, a max, a heavy, whatever, you're not going to have nearly as easy a time camping this with the tree cover, with the wall cover, with these additional canisters down here. So I think that that's a great change. You'll also notice over by the B point for Rashnu, you've got this setup going on. So Clegg tweeted a picture of this probably about a week or so ago, which is actually a pretty nice little infantry fighting area on the ground. At least you still have to worry about people up top, but it's nice. I like it. It's a good approach. This area was completely wide open before, and would be a bitch to cross depending on where the enemies were or where the attackers or defenders were. And you also have this additional cover around this point too, so I think this will make for decent fights for this objective rather than it just being wide open. And you may have noticed the shield blinking above me, which is impenetrable to both bullets and movement by the looks of it, of both empires. And I guess that serves a purpose of not really camping down into it from up here quite as easily, which I also think is a good idea. You actually have to get on down in there to fire on B, rather than just shooting from above. Since vertical advantage is so huge in Biolabs currently, I think that that's definitely a good change for that particular point. You'll see similar things over here with additional cover, higher cover than what was existing beforehand, so you can't quite shoot over it as easily. And again, coming from this pad, this is a huge one too. I mean, this was a giant wide open space where people from the pad would just sit back in there, fire into it. People in here, you would get shot in the back from people camping over there. Like, there was so many points where you could just choke point it if you really wanted to, and if there was enough people and the right amount of people both attacking and defending. So you've got a little bit of a different approach coming into the base, cover for both sides here as well. And again, this looks familiar too. You're seeing more obstacles, well placed, higher walls throughout here. And I think if they're going to do that anywhere, the Biolab should be the place to do it. I mean, it is currently the only place where you are virtually confident, unless somebody is doing some sort of exploit, that you're not going to take damage from vehicles inside the base. And I wish there were more areas where that was the case, but the Biolab is really it right now. People find ways to get vehicle shells into all sorts of other buildings and towers and bases and things like that. I feel like this tree is more elaborate. It looks like it is. It like goes up to there and stuff. Unless Rashnu just had a really, really elaborate tree and I never noticed it, I feel like it is more, but it might not be. It does feel like it provides more cover down in here too, though, even going into the C building. The C building is the same, but I feel like the cover outside of it is better. You've also got, playing back into where the spawn room was, these new points of cover and contest for, you're probably not going to be directly spawn camping that building, but you might, have some angles of where the enemies can approach from that you'll be hanging out. And it should just be more compelling, enjoyable fights for both the attackers and the defenders. I just hope that, some work is done with regard to the spawn room and its path and its frustration and all of those things that go along with it, so that you don't have people just not wanting to or unable to defend biolabs, and all of this amazing work that has been done in this great space in here that we can have these fights doesn't ever even happen because they're so hard to defend, or they get capped in 3 minutes and that's it. SCU's down 90 seconds into it or whatever, and that's it. You had really no chance to fight there. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully some adjustments can be made. Honestly, I'd like to see longer cap timers on biolabs again, and or the removal of the SU shield generator, controlling that directly, because it just feels like you can end what could potentially be the greatest infantry fights in the game so quickly. But that's an aside. I think that the changes are spot on. I like every single one of them, with the exception of the spawn setup. So hopefully that will be addressed, voices will be heard, and like I said, SU is pretty good about that. Don't worry about it, don't freak out about it, don't be rude about it. Just say how you feel about it, and hopefully they'll take that feedback and act accordingly. So we may be seeing additional iterations of this on the test. I don't know that it'll go live with the optimization patch. It's totally possible that it's a separate issue and just something that they're trying out since they knew people would be playing on the test server for optimization. With that said, don't forget to hop on the test server. Check it out for yourself. There's lots of actual things going on lately. Like I was on at like 6 a.m. or something, and there was, like I said, 100 people at Alatum. There's 48 plus enemies and 25 to 48 allies at the Crown right now. I know Reddit, like I said in my current events video the other day, is trying to organize different events. So there actually is stuff going on. I recommend you hop in, check out your performance, check out some of the changes, and see what you like and dislike. Let us know in the comments. Let the devs know, respectfully, of course, but let them know. And we'll go from there. Hopefully we will see the patch on the live servers in just 6 short days on October 30th still, to include at least all of the optimization stuff and maybe some other things for Halloween. I don't know. Just guessing that we'll hopefully have a fun holiday event for that around the same time. So don't forget that you also get a 3-day experience boost on your live character just for logging into the test server between now and the patch day, so over the next week or so. So if it wasn't incentive enough to check this stuff out for yourself, see what your frames look like, then I don't know what to tell you. You get a 3-day boost too. So SOE is being good to you. Anyway, this video is getting pretty long, so that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Give you guys the official preview, first impression, my feedback on it, and hopefully gather some from you guys as well. So hope to hear what you guys think in the comments. And thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out the stream over at ItZMuRdA.com or twitch.tv/ItZMuRdA_TV, and I will see you guys there. Have a good one.